Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to Tom Rhodes Radio Smart Camp. Hey, sorry it's been a little, it's been a minute since I put an episode out, but first of all, the election happened, the presidential election, and, you know, I just have so much anger and dislike of Donald Trump. I hesitated to put something out before the election, and then this election just kind of dragged on, and when Georgia flipped, I did a cartwheel. That's how happy I was. I can't believe Georgia went blue, and now Donald Trump is denying that he lost the election, saying that it was stolen from him, and I think this temper tantrum, this meltdown that he's having now is proof that he's the biggest snowflake of them all. And I owe Adolf Hitler an apology because for the past few years I've been comparing Donald Trump to Hitler when in truth Adolf Hitler never lost an election. The only way Donald Trump can hit 270 now is if he loses 50 pounds. So what, are we going to live with two different realities now with like Republican people thinking that the election was stolen? And I can't believe like Republicans will not still stand up to this guy and say, look, you crybaby, you actually lost the election. And, you know, since when in America is our standard of manhood somebody who never takes responsibility for their actions or for themselves, and someone who can't accept loss graciously? So, I mean, Donald Trump is the biggest snowflake that ever lived. And I think Republicans have proven everything they ever stood for was absolute horseshit about moral character and the Christian code, whatever that means. It's a whites-only Christianity and white power for the 70 million people that voted for Donald Trump. I can't believe it was that close. My mother was worried when she stayed with me. I went on a rant on one of my podcasts. It was after Trump had tear gassed those peaceful protesters in Washington, D.C. so he could take a picture with the Bible. And my mom said, oh, you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be so angry about Trump because you're going to lose conservative listeners. I really don't think I've got too many conservative listeners, Mom. But anyway, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Thank God it looks like that dark human turd is finally going to leave the White House. And it's kind of nice that he's had this meltdown and he's not giving press conferences every day. It's great that this job that he wants to keep so desperately, he's avoiding all of his responsibilities. And I read today that they're ramping up. They're trying to like rush executions now in Trump's remaining term. And I suspect the Trump administration might have been behind that nuclear scientist's assassination in Tehran. I think that's might be another of Trump's last minute things. And he pardoned Michael Flynn, one of the biggest crooks ever. Anyway, I guess that's the news update for the beginning. Did you have a good Thanksgiving? I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. My girlfriend's been staying with me in Los Angeles, and she was with me last Thanksgiving. And let me just say this right now. I love turkey. I eat it all year round. Are you tired of eating turkey sandwiches?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, because I am a turkey sandwich eating fool. I love it, especially on a toasted bagel with a slice of cheddar and some Dijon mustard. But for Thanksgiving, we had a seafood Thanksgiving for the second year in a row. Started out with salad with beets on it, and I've got this great muffin mold. So I've been making cornbread skull muffins. My muffin mold is like a bunch of skull heads. So I think it's really cool to make cornbread skull heads. And then our next course.
Don't forget your shrimp.
Oh yeah, so we had shrimp. What is that? Zezatran, that New Orleans fish batter. I did that on shrimp with fresh chopped up jalapenos on the side. And then we had a crab cake and a lobster cake we got from Whole Foods. And then the big entree for Thanksgiving is one of my favorite things in the world. We had Alaskan king crab dipped in hot melted butter. Just thinking about it makes me salivate. And we did that last year also. And I don't, it's one of my favorite things. I think I haven't eaten it in a year since last Thanksgiving. And wow, what a nice thing. And nobody's buying seafood Thanksgiving week. So keep that in mind next year. Instead of getting a big turkey that's really hard to cook, steaming up some Alaskan king crab. Wow, now that's a good Thanksgiving. So this episode, I want to, just want to talk about some happy things up front. My girlfriend and I'm speaking to you now from Portland, Oregon. And it's been over a week now, but we experienced something really horrific and traumatizing. And I'm going to explain that later in the episode. If you've got a queasy stomach, you might not want to listen to that part of the podcast. But yeah, something really fucked up happened. And it's been a real head fuck mentally. So been trying to deal with that. Things are getting better. We took this trip up to Oregon, and we drove from LA to Ashland, Oregon. And Ashland, Oregon is such an adorable little place. What was the animated movie that?
Coraline.
Coraline. If you ever saw the animated movie Coraline, it takes place in Ashland. They also do a Shakespeare festival there when it's not COVID, life-threatening virus happening. So we stayed there the first night. Love Ashland. What an adorable place. And then we drove to Bend, and we were in Bend for the past 2 days. And my girlfriend, one of her friends, has moved to Bend. So we met with her yesterday, and we met her at Smith Rock, which is a really cool, massive, it looks like Arizona. It looks like near the Grand Canyon. It's so much of Oregon is like high desert, southwest looking stuff. And that's an interesting fact. That month in August when we were taking all these different trips all over Oregon, we saw Trump stickers and flags and just, big banners on the sides of barns and things like that. Farmers for Trump. And you see it all over Northern California. And we were a little nervous at times driving around Oregon, seeing all this Trump stuff. But obviously, it wasn't enough to make Oregon or California turn into a Republican state. So it's kind of funny. I'm thinking of this crazy story that happened to me this morning, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. But so we had this traumatizing event, and I'm sure once you hear it, you will agree that it was traumatizing and really fucked up. But after we went to Smith Rock yesterday, and it's really popular with rock climbers, you could see very brave men and women dangling from long ropes on these rocks. But we just walked around it, appreciated the great beauty of the place. And my girlfriend caught up with her friend because this is my girlfriend's kind of last trip to Oregon for a while. She's going to finish up her school that she's been doing here in Portland. And, this is kind of a goodbye for her to see some friends. Of course, now COVID is surging and all the businesses, most restaurants and everything is closed down again. But my girlfriend's friend lives on a horse farm. So after we went to Smith Rock yesterday, we went to this horse farm, and you could see these mountains in the distance. So Oregon cowboy, cool. And one of the horses fell in love with me. And it just this big horse head kept like rubbing up at me and nudging my belly with his snout. And then he actually nibbled on my ear at one point. And then when we were all standing there talking, I had my back to the fence, and this lovable horse put his big horse head over my shoulder. And I like got to, with my right hand, I'm like stroking his big soft horse cheek, and I'm turning my eyes to the right, and the horse's eye is right even with mine, and I felt love in that horse's eyeball. I have to say, that horse was in love with me, right?
Yeah.
That horse was serious. And it was great after this traumatizing event. I had read years ago about like some abused children. I forget what the story was, but there was some camp where these kids went out to some horse farm. I forget if they had been, I think, take your pick, however they had been abused mentally or physically. But I just remembered this story that these kids felt really happy and found healing just being among these animals. And I that story crossed my mind yesterday as this horse is nibbling on my ear with his big soft lips. And I have to say, I needed some horse love at that moment. And I'll tell you another nice thing. It's, the Oregon wilderness is so beautiful, and we left Ashland 2 days ago, and we're driving to Bend, and we're on this Highway 66 headed east going to Klamath Falls, and then there's just snow everywhere. All these trees, these pine trees are holding, big globs of snow on their branches, and the road was completely white with snow. And I'm not used to driving in snow. I remember being on the road when I was young. I remember a few times I got caught in snowstorms. I remember one time driving back from Chicago or Cincinnati, going back to Florida in winter. I was driving through Kentucky and it snowed, and everybody's doing 30 miles an hour. And I'm like, I forget what, I'm probably like 21, 22 years old, total knucklehead with my Florida license plates. And I'm ripping, probably doing like 60 miles an hour. Hey, all these morons doing 30. And then my car slid out of control, and went into the big snow drift where the ditch used to be. And then some big redneck guy comes in his truck, and he pulled me out, and it cost me like $100. And this guy told me he's just driving up and down this highway, pulling out morons like me from Florida. But that's like a lesson you only have to learn once. I mean, here we are 30 years later, and I'm one of the cautious people doing 30 miles an hour, driving over the white, snowy road. But it was like such a beautiful winter wonderland. And then today, we're driving from Bend to Portland, and we went up 97, Highway 97, and then we take Highway 26. And somewhere along Highway 26, it started out as a beautiful day. It's sunny, and then we were in this massive blizzard today, and you could, fortunately, like there was trucks ahead of me, so I could there was like a sludgy twin tire tracks that I could point my tires in that, but it was a serious blizzard we were driving through for about a half hour today, which is totally nuts. So here's this weird thing that happened to me this morning. We were in Bend, and so my lovely Patreon subscribers, my golden Buddhas, the people who give me $20 every month, thank you so much. God bless you people. I mean, everybody who donates money is the reason why I keep doing this podcast. But and it's great, too, because I've been collecting postcards my whole life. So, and on my travels. So, it's great now that, I'm not traveling outside of Oregon and California, but the postcards I sent out this month were from Malaysia and from Vietnam that I got the last time I was in Malaysia and Vietnam a few years ago. But there's times when I'll write these postcards at the last minute to do it each month. And usually for me, the last minute is like a couple days before the end of the month. But actually, today, right now, I'm speaking to you on November 30th. We got to Bend yesterday after we went to this horse farm and we got home back to the hotel. I sat there and I wrote out all of the postcards to send to my beautiful golden Buddhas. And I try to put effort into it. I try not to rush it. I try not to make it just like one sentence. I really put some time and thought into what I write to everybody. So I feel like I caught a touchdown with my toes inbounds with like 1 second left on the clock. The fact that I wrote them all yesterday, November 29th, and that I mailed them today. So this morning before we left, I drove by myself to the post office because I wanted to, I don't want to put them in a mailbox. They got to get this stamp today. It's really important to me to send out these postcards every month. See if you're not one of my Patreon Golden Buddha subscribers, what beautiful holy relics you're missing from getting an amazing postcard every month. So I had to go inside the post office to put it into the mail slot this morning. And then I'm driving back, going back to the hotel. I'm on a side road and I need to go down 2 blocks to a stop sign and take a right. And then 1 block up is the main road that's going to take me back to the hotel. So I'm in a really good mood. I just put the postcards in the mail in time, and I'm driving, and I took my mask off in the car. I sanitize my hands every time I get back in the car. Take off the mask, and I'm in no hurry, and I'm pulling up to the stop sign, and then to my left. That stop sign, there's an old beat-up Ford pickup truck, and it's green. And there was an older white guy, overweight and bald, and he had pulled up to the his stop sign first. I mean, it wasn't like there was no incident. There wasn't like any problem. And I'm in no hurry, so I'm going slow as I'm pulling up to my stop sign. And then this guy is starting to cross through the intersection. And he points at me, and then he gives me both of his middle fingers, like really angry, and and I see his lips go, "Fuck you," and he is weird. He points at me and goes, "Fuck you," with a double middle finger thing. And my first thought was, "Oh, he must be familiar with my work." And then my second thought was, maybe he doesn't like people from California. I've got California plates. Maybe a lot of Californians have been coming to Oregon and buying up property and raising the property value. I know that happened in Austin, Texas, like 10, 15 years ago, and there was resentments towards Californians moving there. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe, but then maybe not. Maybe the guy just doesn't like people in brown cars. Maybe it was really weird, and it kind of frightened me because it's weird. Since this incident happened that traumatized me, I've had I've felt a little fearful in different times. But anyway, it's hard to explain. I guess once you know the full picture, you'll understand better. But anyway, that just made me want to get the fuck out of Bend, Oregon. And Bend is cool. Bend is a nice place. It's no Ashland, I'll tell you that. I'd really like to go back to Ashland. And we just arrived in Portland. Diego Maradona died. As a half Argentinian guy, I feel like have to address that. And that's been a kind of a good distraction. Yeah, and I had this like dread after the election especially like a week after the election. Like, are they gonna like pull a coup? Is this happening in the United States? The Republicans are just gonna like be like muscle dick jocks and just fucking take away our democracy. I had fear over the fact that our democracy might be ending from this coup, and like Trump trying to overturn the election in the Supreme Court. There was a lot of shit that was going through my mind the last couple of weeks, and anywho, Diego Maradona, that was a good distraction. It's terrible that he died, but I think the guy had a cocaine addiction for most of his life. He was overweight. I don't think he led the most healthy lifestyle. But what has been interesting is, like, after he died, there was a funeral worker in Buenos Aires. I don't know if you saw this. He took a picture with him and his son, and they're giving the thumbs up with Maradona's dead body. And there was one photo, and the guy actually has his hand on Maradona's forehead, and he's giving the thumbs up. I mean, like, who would post that? Who would post a picture? Let's just say, for etiquette purposes, probably never a good idea to take a picture with a dead body in a casket. So that guy lost his job. He's apologizing. And then yesterday it was on the news that the doctor that treated Maradona, because he had visited a doctor. I think he had a small tumor removed, something, a couple weeks before he died. The Buenos Aires police raided the doctor's home. I don't know why, but I just sense that the people of Argentina are completely grief-stricken and they're looking for someone to blame. I think that's a human trait. They always want to blame somebody for something. So last night we watched the documentary Maradona, and it's phenomenal. The guy led an amazing life. One of the greatest soccer players of all time. He was a cheat. He had godlike abilities. He was a terrible person, and then he was a great loving person. The guy, the duality of man and the duality of a flawed hero and a very gifted athlete. It's a pretty powerful story, especially when he goes to Naples, Italy, and he's playing for the Naples team. And when they would play around Italy, all the teams, like the fans, were so racist and nasty to the Naples team. They were saying that they called them cholera sufferers, and they would yell, "Go wash yourselves." It was just like the most nasty chants. And some of them gave me a pretty good laugh. So that was good. Something I've been reading. Oh, and then the Mitch Hedberg documentary came out on Sirius XM on the Comedy Central channel. And I recorded that last year. And I got to tell all my best Mitch Hedberg stories and all the stories about us partying. I think one of my favorite memories of Mitch Hedberg, we co-headlined at the Laugh Stop in Houston, Texas a couple times. And they would put the comedians at the Allen Park Inn, which no longer exists. It was this massive hotel, maybe like 1,000 rooms. It looked like it was a really thriving place, probably in the 60s. But in the 60s, a lot of astronauts went there and had affairs or something. But it was probably like a 1,000, 2,000 room hotel. And they would only have probably 50 rooms rented for the night. So we always stayed on the back side of the property. And we could be as loud as we want. And we'd play music with the doors open, and the pool was on the back side. And we would invite the local comedians to the local Houston comedians. That was such a great scene back then. And we all hung out. We all partied. And me and Hedberg had done mushrooms. and it was in the summer, and there was a big, wide open green space lawn next to the pool, and these sprinklers came on, and me and Hedberg took off our clothes, and we were on mushrooms, and we went jumping through the sprinklers like homoerotic nymphs, and then we would run around the side and jump into the pool and then come out and then run through the sprinklers again. And we did like maybe 10, 20 laps, circles, running through the sprinklers, high on mushrooms, jumping in the pool. And then also, there were people that were at the show that were there that we had invited back. So it was funny. And I've told that story a few times. And I remember I told it once, and Ralphie May heard me telling it, and Ralphie May said, "Oh, I was there. I did that. I got naked with you guys." And no, that's not the truth. Everyone would remember a naked Ralphie May. So, there was that. And God, what was his other Hedberg stories? I really loved that guy. And he looked up to me. He treated me like a very revered, special human being. And I'm really happy that I got to tell all my Hedberg stories and what the guy meant to me. And that was really nice. That came on a week ago. And let's see, I've been reading this book. It's called The Stoic Challenge, A Philosopher's Guide to Becoming Tougher, Calmer, and More Resilient by William Irvine. So let's listen to a couple of highlights that I've made. The comedic frame. When someone wrongs you, keep in mind Seneca's comment that laughter, and a lot of it, is the right response to the things which drive us to tears. He also reminded us that this technique was employed by Socrates. After someone boxed his ears, Socrates responded not by getting angry, but by commenting on how unfortunate it is, when we set out for a walk, that we can't know ahead of time whether to wear a helmet. I think Socrates said that trying to be funny. I came across a wonderful example of the use of humor in the face of a setback while touring Machu Picchu in Peru. My guide said that a few years earlier he had been leading a group of Australians on a 4-day hike along the Inca Trail in the Andes Mountains. When the hike ended, the group returned to Aguas Calientes. I've stayed there, a nearby town where they would catch the train to Cuzco in order to board their flight back home. But then my guide found out that the train wouldn't be running for days. The Urubamba River was in flood stage, meaning that his clients were stuck in Aguas Calientes. When he informed them, they fell silent, until one of the Australians offered a brilliant response. "Well then, let's have some beer." The rest of the group laughed, and off they went to a nearby bar. It's cute that he brings up that story, but I've been to Australia many times, and that's the Australian answer for everything. Let's have some beer. By responding to the setback with humor, the Australian not only prevented anger from arising in himself, but set the tone for the group. His joke effectively cut off the sort of complaining that might otherwise have filled the vacuum. Once he played the beer card, it would have been very difficult for someone else to say, "I've got a better idea. Let's stand around and moan about how unfair life is." Notice, too, that by going for beer, the Australians transformed a setback into a great story to share with friends in the future. A story about the time they got stuck in Aguas Calientes. Another time humor comes in handy is when we have been insulted. Lots of people respond to insults by getting angry, and the insult thereby sets them back. A better response is simply to laugh. By doing so, we not only forestall anger in ourselves, but make the person who insulted us look like a fool. He hit us with his best verbal shot, and we just laughed it off. Laughter can also be an effective response to a profound personal calamity. Roger Ebert realized this. So did Michael Cubis, a lively and fit former military officer who started an import business. At age 40, a massive cerebral hemorrhage left him locked in, not to the extent that Jean-Dominique Bauby was, but severely enough to limit his ability to engage in everyday activities. Cubis responded to his predicament not by lapsing into depression, but by using his well-developed sense of humor to make jokes about his ludicrous circumstances. Conclusion: if you can bring yourself to laugh at the things that make most people cry, you have a powerful weapon to use against life's adversities. As we have seen, Socrates made a joke in response to a physical attack. Some might criticize this response on moral grounds. Rather than simply laughing at his attacker, shouldn't Socrates have turned him into the police? Doing this, after all, would decrease the chance that the attacker would attack Socrates or some other innocent person in the future. In response to this criticism, let me point out that using the comedic frame does not preclude us from turning in an attacker. By framing the attack, we can prevent it from harming us emotionally. This is important to do, since the emotional harm we experience in the aftermath of an attack can far outweigh the physical harm. After that, we have the option of taking steps to prevent similar attacks on ourselves and others in the future. Depending on the circumstances, this might mean turning in the attacker to the authorities. I should add that the historical record does not indicate whether this is what Socrates did. It's funny, I used to always say the best thing you can do to combat fascism is to ridicule it. And the last 4 years has proven me wrong. I hope we can go back to ridiculing white supremacist morons and fascists and those other little sporting pastimes that I used to enjoy about life so much. Let's see here. Would you like another highlight?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Seneca. Seneca is the I've read Seneca and I've talked about Seneca and I even did a podcast episode about Seneca. I think you guys know how much I love Seneca. But it's important to always keep in mind that Seneca never lived up to his own advice. But here's some more Seneca. Consider the death of a loved one. Seneca acknowledged that some grief is appropriate in its aftermath. Nature requires from us some sorrow, but adds that more than this is the result of vanity. He has in mind those individuals whose primary motivation for public displays of grief is to show the world how sensitive and caring they are. The Stoics were also aware that in some cases, the anguish a person experiences after a death is motivated more by feelings of guilt than by grief. Suppose a husband takes his wife for granted while she is alive and consequently does not invest as much into their relationship as he should. After she is gone, he can no longer make things right, and this thought sickens him. The people we love won't be with us forever. Wow, there's a sentence. Yeah. Let's all meditate on that for a minute. The people we love won't be with us forever. Nothing else. Our own death will deprive us of their company. The Stoics therefore recommend that we periodically make a point of reminding ourselves just how wonderful it is that the people we love are currently part of our life. Something could have happened that deprived us of their company, but it didn't. Aren't we lucky? Engage in this kind of mortality meditation, says Stoics, and we will fully appreciate the existence of those we love while they are still alive, meaning that our love can make a difference in their lives. We will therefore feel less need, when they are no longer with us, to grieve their passing. In particular, we won't have regrets about what we could or should have done while they were alive, since we likely would have done it. It should be clear that rather than being ghoulish, these meditations are a deeply life-affirming exercise. If we presented a Stoic with the list of Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, his response would be to skip the first 4: denial, anger, bargaining, and depression, and go directly to stage 5, acceptance. The Stoic would add that since we don't have it in our power to resurrect the dead, we are wasting our time mourning their passing excessively. To the extent possible, we should simply accept their death and get on with life. Well, that's easier said than done, Seneca. Okay, one last little highlight here for you from this book. In his essay on providence, Seneca quotes the Cynic philosopher Demetrius as saying, "Nothing seems to me more unhappy than the man who has no experience of adversity." Consequently, he says, a wise man will welcome a degree of adversity in his life. He will regard this adversity as a kind of training exercise and might even take delight in it, just as brave soldiers delight in warfare. Not only that, but in the absence of adversity, a wise man will become restless. Some men, he says, have presented themselves of their own accord to misfortune when it is slow to affect them, seeking to find an opportunity for their worth to shine out when it is in danger of falling into obscurity. This may sound strange, but a wise man knows that although adversity can crush us, it can also, if we are in the right frame of mind, strengthen us and thereby enhance our ability to withstand adversity. Okay, I thought that might be helpful. A lot of people having a hard time. And I was having a pretty good pandemic until I was presented with a difficult situation. I think I'm going to come back momentarily, and I'm going to tell you what happened to me. So I hope you guys are doing great wherever you're at. I hope you're wearing a mask. I know you're wearing a mask. You're smart. Hope you're sanitizing. Hope you're washing your hands. Hope you're staying away from the super spreaders. And wow, we're almost through this year. Every imaginable thing, unbelievable, seems to have happened this year. Okay, we'll be right back. I love you very much. Okay, now we have come to the difficult part of the podcast. And to be honest with you, very difficult part of my life. And I know very difficult for you as well.
Yeah.
So this is a really disturbing story. It might upset people just to hear it. I mean, it was upsetting to live it, to say the least. And in the week afterwards, the tremors and the after effect of this event has been so strong for my girlfriend and I. But now that a little time has passed, I feel like I can tell the story. You know, after it happened, when I retold the story to my mom and a few of the good friends that I reached out to, I was unable to get through this story without crying my eyes out. So we'll see how we can get through this now. But it's disturbing, it's heartbreaking, and it was traumatizing. So let me we'll just tell the story, and my girlfriend who lived it and experienced it with me, and why don't I just shut up and tell you what happened. On November 19th, so I've mentioned on the podcast before, I lived near this outdoor shopping area called the Grove. And it's nice, and right next to the Grove is the farmer's market, and it's the whole reason I moved to this area where I live in Los Angeles, because back in the 90s when I lived in LA, I had my dad and my sister lived in LA, and I used to meet them at the farmer's market all the time when we would have lunch and stuff. So, I mean, it's a happy place. For me, anyway, for the farmer's market. And I've talked to other friends who told me they bring... I've talked to some LA comedian friends who told me they bring all their dates to the Grove. So, I think this area is kind of significant to a lot of people and their memories. So, on November 19th, my girlfriend and I were going to the grocery store. On the opposite block, on the other side of the Grove and the farmer's market, there's a Whole Foods and there's a Trader Joe's. So it was a nice sunny day, and we're walking down. You have to walk by the Grove to go to the other corner to go to these grocery stores. And, we were talking. We haven't seen many people at all. It's just been my girlfriend and I for the past few months together. And we were in a good mood. We were joking about something.
Yeah.
And couldn't have been in a better mood, and it couldn't have been a nicer sunny day. And right before the Grove is the parking garage for the Grove. So we get, and then, there's like 8 car entrances and car exits for this side of the parking garage. So we're waiting. There's, the don't walk red man sign. And we were laughing about something, and we're just standing there waiting for the walk signal. And then the walk signal happened, and 6, 7 steps in, we're walking through the middle of the crosswalk. And as we got past the second garage car entrance exit, it just chills me to think of this moment. And this has been the thing that's disturbed me. We're 6, 7 steps in, the second car entrance, and a woman committed suicide by jumping off of the Grove parking garage. And she landed 3 feet to my right. She landed my arm's length to my right. And my girlfriend said she heard her scream. It's interesting thing about, cognitive memory or something. I didn't hear a scream.
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, it was so confusing at first, but I didn't think that it was someone falling from a building. Yeah. So, sorry.
No, it's okay, because that's I know that has been playing over and over in your mind.
Yeah.
and this moment has played over and over in our minds, which is I realize now that my whole life I've been misusing the word traumatized, because this truly traumatized me. I don't think I've experienced something like a trauma like this. I think I've had some mini traumas, but back to the event itself. This woman landed 1 arm's length to my right. She didn't land in front of us. She didn't land behind us. And we're looking straight ahead as we're walking. I felt something enter my peripheral vision, and I looked right. And as I'm looking right, the thing that played, I didn't hear the scream. I heard the thud of this woman hit the sidewalk, and as I'm looking right, and I see her body bounce up, and it scared the shit out of me. And I stepped back, and I put my left hand on your arm, and we stepped back together, and we were in shock. The woman died instantly, and I knew instantly what happened, but I'm looking at her body on the ground, and I'm in shock. And I looked at you, and I could tell you were in shock also, but you pulled out your phone to call 911, and your focus in that moment reminded me, get help. That's what we can do. And so I ran to the valet, which is the closest thing to where like security people are, and I ran to the guy, and I could barely get the words out. I'm like, just, oh my, it was like I didn't know how to breathe all of a sudden. I'm so upset, and I'm so pumping full of adrenaline and fear. And I told the guy, a woman just jumped off the parking garage. Call security, call the police, call an ambulance. And he just looked at me like he was trying to, comprehend what I had just told him. And I screamed at him, call an ambulance. And I ran back to you, and you were on the curb, and then some other people had stopped, and then cars stopped. And, I remember this Asian woman got out of her car. She was standing there.
She saw our reaction with her friend or the man that she was with, and they both came over and they asked us, like, who attacked her or who hit her.
Was she pushed? She asked.
So, she had asked me if, like, who hit her or something like that. But I think she also, I don't know, but
the thing I remember, she had, maybe that was before I got back when she asked that, and I remember her saying, who pushed her, and I said she jumped, and then she broke down in tears when she realized what happened, and then the man that was with her said, we only saw your reaction,
right,
and we must have jumped out of our skin.
Yeah. And it's so weird because we were walking in front of, we're at a crosswalk, so there were cars watching us, people in cars, but they didn't really understand what was going on. And while I was on the phone with them, I was trying to make eye contact with them, or just happened to make eye contact with them. And it's just, it's so baffling to think they had no clue what happened right in front of them.
Yeah, these people. And there was a man walked up, and he started to, like, fan the woman with, like, a shirt or something. Like, I thought he might have thought she had fainted.
Yeah.
So, my girlfriend and I have talked about this so much, and all these different, like, elements to the story, and I guess we're lucky that the story wasn't worse. Like, we didn't even think until, like, a couple days later that, thank God she didn't fall on one of us, and that one of us got hurt. But there was no blood, so maybe the guy who was fanning her thought that she had just fainted or something. And then we hear the sirens coming in the distance, and these cops and security guys came running from within the grove, and the fire trucks pulled up, and then the firemen got out, and I never saw the woman's face, which I think is a good thing. I think that really would have fucked with me even more. But the fireman walked over, and then he, like, checked her pulse by, like, her neck, and then he just leaned up and took his gloves off, and I knew that she was dead. And you hear about suicides, and Brody Stevens was a good friend of mine, killed himself last year, and there was a story about that family in Florida, and their son had committed suicide, and I saw them at the airport, and the family was just crippled with grief, and it's always upsetting, but to actually experience it firsthand, it we were shaken, to say the least. And we went and sat somewhere for...
Yeah, we sat at the Grove for a little bit, and we were planning on going to the grocery store, but we just couldn't after that.
Yeah.
So we decided to go to a coffee shop and sit outside, of course, and just...
We sat at the Grove for like 20 minutes, and both of us were shaking and crying, and then there's no way we could go to the grocery store anytime soon. We had to... we went down 3rd Street and sat outside on some patio of some coffee place, and just we just crying and trying to understand what we had just witnessed.
But yeah, we were told to leave the area.
Oh yeah, when the police and the firemen came, they asked everyone to leave.
And it was crazy because the security guard who you called, I think, he was asking us to leave, and after Tom told him the situation, all he could say was like, thank you, sorry, and he was so shaken up too.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It was terrible. So when we could finally get our shit together to go to the store, we bought some flowers to take to the spot later. And then when we were coming back, this is like maybe 2 hours after it happened, we saw that one security guard, and anyway, he said that at their other property in Glendale, somebody jumped off a parking garage and landed on some grandfather that was walking with his grandson. Anyway, the story could have been a lot worse, but
Yeah.
we it killed our joy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then that night we walked over there. Oh yeah, and then we could see the coroner and all the cops, doing their thing when we walked back home, and we were just so profoundly sad. And we walked down there that night, and I said a prayer, you read a statement, and then we put flowers down on either side of where the woman's body hit. And we don't know the woman's name, we don't know why she did it.
We don't even know what she looks like.
Don't even know what she looks like. I remember because I could all I could see was her arm. And I thought it was a black woman in her 30s.
Yeah.
And I was telling you that night, I said, my brain's been trying to understand, like maybe, society was against this woman. Maybe she couldn't get career advancement. Who knows what her home life was like. And then you said,
I thought she was of East Asian descent. So it's so funny how even our recollection of the incident is so different, yet like so painful.
Yeah, and then that happened exactly 1 week before Thanksgiving. So that last week before Thanksgiving, I know a lot of people have been having a really hard time during the pandemic, and it hasn't always been easy. And I try and stay cheerful and everything, but holy fuck, the weight of the world and this woman's suicide just. That week, like I would break down crying, and then you would hold me, or you would break down crying and I would hold you. And I mentioned earlier about this fear. Like there's been a few times at night when I've gone to sleep where I've like felt afraid because and then oh my god, it's like the day after, just that moment of her body hitting the thud and her bouncing just replayed in my mind, and it wouldn't stop playing for like I'd say 3 or 4 days afterwards. It just 200 times, 300 times a day. I couldn't get this image out of my head. And then as the as the days went on, it got less, like maybe 75 and 50 times a day, but it really traumatized me and disturbed me, and the fear that I felt was at night going to bed because I was afraid that this image would come to me in my dreams. And shit. And and I thought, like, thinking about it afterwards, I was talking with you, like, God, well, there's this backside of the parking garage. She could have jumped off on the alley side, but she jumped off facing the park, and you thought that.
Yeah, but I was thinking that, like, well, it was just me wondering, like, what that park might have meant to her. And in my statement, the night that, like what I said, the night we went back, the night of the incident, when we put down flowers, I just said that I hope that it offered her some sort of comfort before what happened. And yeah, I do sometimes wonder what that space meant to her.
Yeah, and then that reminded me of, how special the farmers market is to my memories with my dad and my sister, and maybe just that whole place was significant to her, whatever her story was.
Yeah.
And any other thoughts about what happened?
Yeah, I don't think that she would have done it had she known that you and I were walking below her. I think that, like, we're giving her the benefit of the doubt, and yeah.
One thing I know, I told you, like, it's made me. I always try to be a compassionate person.
Yeah.
But it's made me compassionate, like when I'm dealing with like anyone, like a cashier at a store or something. As I just constantly have this thought in my mind, like, what is anybody going through that we're, on top of, just the regular life struggles.
Yeah.
You got COVID and just all this heavy shit that's happened this year.
Yeah.
And I like a week after, I could start to, make some dark jokes about it to you. I said, considering how bad things are now, I guess we're lucky that, only one person jumped out of fell out of the sky, and that there's not people, jumping off buildings everywhere. But holy fuck, I didn't need to see that. Yeah. I've reached out to. I'm trying to find a therapist to talk to. Now that it's over a week, and I tell you, like I was mentioning earlier, seeing the innocence of snow and the Oregon wilderness and horses, having this horse put his head on my shoulder and nibble on my ear, that certainly cheered me up. But I don't think I'll ever be able to get that image out of my head.
I thought that, I don't know, I'd been having a wonderful time with you on this trip, but even just today, we just picked up some Vietnamese food, and while I was standing by the pickup area, I just heard some of the employees just joking around, and I guess one of them laughed, and in a really weird way, people have funny laughs, and I thought that it was a yell at first, and it just brought me back to that moment for a second, and, you hugged me, and it's just like, I don't know, sometimes it just pops into my head randomly.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
I know that scream took you there immediately.
Yeah,
and like we talked about a few days ago, like I remember in the 90s, people were always talking about these Vietnam veterans with war flashbacks and stuff, and now I understand surviving a traumatic experience and how that shit can play over and over in your mind. So I've said it before, and it's something you and I have talked about, that I think the best thing that you can do with bad memories is to pave over them with good ones, and we've got some paving to do.
Yeah.
But fuck, I'm just glad I could tell a story without really crying.
Yeah.
That's a half laugh, half cry. Wow.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? I think we pretty much covered it.
There's a lot, but yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I really wish we hadn't have experienced that. But
Me too.
And we really cared for each other.
Yeah.
We've been caring for each other. We've both been fragile since it happened. And, yeah.
We've been meditating every so often.
That's helped. I haven't ever successfully meditated before the last few days. That's nice. Right. And I like the two blocks or two sections. Yeah. The way you do it is first to do a meditation on why you're grateful.
Yeah.
And the things that you're grateful for.
Yeah, we've been like listing things that we're grateful for, and also kind of focusing on being kind to ourselves, because something that at least I've experienced is that I feel the weight of school and keeping up with my friendships and connecting with my family, and I feel stress and I feel upset a lot of the time. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that, hey, everything that we're going through is normal for the bizarre and tragic experience thing that we witnessed. And just kind of focusing on that and going easy on ourselves is important. And then just kind of refreshing our mind and just breathing together has been really nice too before bed. It also helps me filter out those thoughts and, like, I don't know, to the best that we can, just before bed.
Yeah, I like doing the meditation on gratitude, and then breathing in and breathing out, and thinking about things I'm grateful for, and then the second meditation to just clear your mind and listen to your breath, and listen to the inhale, and then listen to your long exhale. That's been very, very calming.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
I think so too.
Another thing that in November this month also, I got to do some stand-up comedy sets, and just like 2 weeks ago I got to do. I talked to my friend Paul Ogata. He was doing this club in Escondido, which is like an hour north of San Diego. It's called the Grand Comedy Club, and they had a outdoor patio alley, and they had heat lamps, and all the tables were 6 feet apart, and people were wearing masks. And it just felt so great to get on stage again and to speak words into a microphone and hear people laugh. And, one thing about that Diego Maradona, that documentary, that he said in there a few times, when I'm on the pitch, the world goes away and all my problems go away. And that's how I feel when I do stand-up comedy. And then there's this other gig in Venice Beach called the Venice Compound, which it's an interesting place. Harrison Ford's kids lived here, and apparently they were on drugs and the place fell in disrepair. And a year ago, some architect bought it, and there's a long lap pool in the middle of the property. And Ahmed runs this gig, and the audience sits on one side of the lap pool, and and the comedians on the other, and they changed and the Escondido gig did the same thing. They changed the microphone for each comedian, and you wear a mask until you go on. And just for these short sets, I needed to remember my jokes. So you played me my videos as we're driving, because remember, like in Escondido, I tried to do the 1861 joke, and I forgot it halfway through. But then, and it was the weekend after we saw the woman commit suicide.
Right.
The next night, I did the Venice Beach gig, and then Saturday I did 2 shows opening for Neil Brennan in Escondido. Wow. And then that Sunday, I was back at the Venice Beach gig, and I opened for Bill Burr. And it's like my whole social world revolves around comedy. It was great to be, among my comedy friends and comedians I respect. And it's funny. It feels like being an open micer again. Yeah. And you helped me. And I was really thankful to get to do those shows after this and I didn't mention a word to anybody.
Yeah. I think it's really brilliant that you did that, because after experiencing what we did, I think it's beautiful to make people laugh. People need joy in their lives, These are really tough times, and I think it's a beautiful thing to put smiles on people's faces and,
The world needs comedy.
Yeah.
Especially right now.
Yeah.
And now COVID's surging again, so California and Oregon is shut down, so these shows probably won't be happening again. Probably not for a while, because it's going to be cold and who knows what's going to happen. But anyway.
I'm very lucky to be being with a comedian 24/7. I need that in my life.
So should we, let's see, I think that's probably the heaviest thing I've talked about, I remember that, and I became friends with the family in Florida about the soldier who had committed suicide, and my friend Brody Stevens committed suicide, and it's just you never know what anybody's going through.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah, my friend earlier this year also committed suicide, and you just never know. He also would seem to me to have been the last person to have done that.
Yeah, what you told me about that friend, he seemed like a really happy, funny guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was always the life of the party. He was the one who would always cheer me up when I'd be like, oh, I have to submit this assignment, I'm stressed, blah, blah, blah. And he'd always be like, just relax. You don't need to, there's no stress in the world. Just take it day by day. And, so it's tough.
You never know. I mean, and I've talked with you. I saw Brody Stevens 2 days before he killed himself.
Yeah.
And I was going through my divorce at the time, and he was concerned about me. He was asking me about me. And you look back on that moment, I'm like, God, why didn't I notice anything? But you never know what somebody's going through. And your friend was a cheerful person.
Mm-hmm.
Brody was always silly and funny.
Yeah. I think it's so important to reach out to people, reach out to those who love you and who you love, like your support system. Even if you're just feeling the slightest bit depressed, speak to someone and don't be vague about it. Speak directly to them that you're having certain thoughts and feelings of hopelessness, and if anything, reach out to a professional. That's so important.
Yeah.
There are hotlines.
One of the things we talked about, that Golden Gate Bridge documentary, The Bridge, and it was about the suicides off the Golden Gate Bridge. 1 in 20 people who jump off the bridge to commit suicide live. Mm-hmm. And they interviewed people who had survived, and they said the first thought they had after they jumped was they wished they hadn't have done it. That's the thing that stuck with me the most about that movie.
Yeah.
But definitely reach out to your friends, reach out to the people you love. I know I've been calling friends and FaceTiming with people.
Yeah. Yeah, tell people you love them.
Yeah. Yeah. Love is powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think we should, we can't just end the podcast there. So do you want to, well, first of all, we've been listening to a lot of Waylon Jennings. I know I've mentioned that.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I love that we've been really into, it's Waylon Jennings' greatest hits. We keep listening over.
And also White Lightning.
White Light, yeah, and that album White Lightning. Those two Waylon Jennings albums we've been playing the shit out of. And there's this guy that I discovered, Charlie Crockett. He's got a new album called Welcome to Hard Times. It came out this year. That's another great album. And you want to tell us about the book that you're reading? This might be a nice way to.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm reading the Stoics, and you're reading.
So I'm reading this book called Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls. I think that's how you pronounce her name. It's amazing. I love it. It might be one of my favorite books ever. But within the first 20 pages, she is described as a bored housewife. And she's, I don't know, there are these messages on the radio and on TV that are saying, beware, there's a wild monster on the loose, beware. And she's just living her domestic life. And then one day that monster, which turns out to be an amphibian man.
You described him as like a frog man?
Yeah, he's a frog man. He's a frog man, yeah.
Is he green?
I think so,
or is he like kind of grayish like a toad?
I like to imagine him green.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's slippery.
So, yeah, he's slippery.
With the little suction cups on his fingertips?
That's fun. Yeah,
the tree climbing frogs?
I think so. So he shows up in her kitchen, and it's just this the sexual tension between these two are crazy. So
You gonna read a passage from? And what's the name of the book?
Mrs. Caliban. Yeah.
Okay.
By Rachel Ingalls.
Okay. And this is a bored housewife who's
about to get it on
with a frog.
With a frog. Okay. So okay. Here it is. He stepped forward, took off her bathrobe, letting it fall on top of the bed, and started to take off her nightgown from top to bottom, but quickly realized that it must be made to work the other way. He picked up the skirt from around her knees and lifted it over her head. He put his hand on her shoulder and pushed her gently on the bed. He sat beside her. He said, looking at her, "I've never seen men, but not someone like you." "A woman," she whispered, her throat beginning to close up. He asked, "Are you frightened?" "Of course." "I'm not. I feel good, but it's very strange." A lot more than strange, she thought. But then, no, it's just the same. They rolled backward together on the bed. "Wait, not like that," she said. "Show me." "I'm a bit embarrassed." What does that mean? She didn't really know. What the hell could it mean in such an encounter? Later in the day, when they were lying side by side, she asked, "Are you young, or are you old, or are you in between?" "I'm between young and in between. And you?" "So am I, but I'm afraid I'm nearer to in between now than to young. I'm in the middle." "Is this time worse for you than it was before?" "Not now. Now it's better." They made love on the living room floor and on the dining room sofa and sitting in the kitchen chairs and upstairs in the bathtub, and they talked.
Wow.
I'll save the rest for any interested readers.
And then she gave birth to some tadpoles.
Yes. I love this book.
Well, that's good. That's a nice, lighthearted. I can't wait to find out what happens. Maybe she'll leave her husband for
I hope so.
The frog man.
Yeah, her husband's a bit of a pig, so yeah, that's.
Where would they live if she would be with the frog man?
I don't know. She's
down by the creek.
I guess so. Yeah, by the pond.
Well, I wouldn't want to experience a trauma with anyone else but you.
Aww, our first trauma.
No, seriously, it was a really, really tough week since that happened, and we're being silly, but we're because it's good to be silly. We're feeling a lot better. It was a really, really difficult time afterwards. I hope you guys are doing great wherever you're at, whatever's going on with your life. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Reach out to your loved ones, reach out to your friends, and
get a therapist if you need one.
Get a therapist if you need one. And we're in Portland now. This is your goodbye for now.
Yeah.
To Portland. Mm-hmm. And we met here. So what are you looking forward to in the last this visit to Portland right now?
Oh God, hopefully seeing friends, depending on the lockdown situation. I don't know, I'm actually just happy to spend some vacation, in air quotes, quality time with you and just absorb the city. I'm excited to see my old housemates and gather all my things to ship back home. And Portland food is amazing, so I'm actually really excited about that.
Portland food is amazing. And I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to is taking you back up to Healy Heights Park and playing wiffle ball. Yeah. Because one of the nicest things I discovered about you is in the last couple months is what a naturally gifted power hitter you are. You're a slugger. She absolutely crushes the shit out of wiffle balls. And there's good therapy too. Yeah. Doesn't it feel good to just smack the shit out of some wiffle balls?
Yeah.
So if there's another tip for you. Do Alaskan king crab on Thanksgiving and see a therapist if you're having troubles, and if you want to, get rid of some stress, smack the shit out of some wiffle balls.
Yeah.
And then we got you your own proper baseball glove.
Yes.
And then we've also been playing catch with a hard baseball.
So much fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's nice. So anyway, be good to yourself. Be good to your brains, more importantly. Eat that piece of chocolate. But anyway, I love you guys and hope you're doing great wherever you're at. Long may you run. Shalom, amigos. Amigas.
Thank you. Bye.
And hooray for humanity.
Tom Rhodes, you're a funny man. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedian. Tom Rhodes, karate kick, baby, oh yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're a groovy dude. You go all around the world, telling jokes to all of the people. You are an international comedian. You're funny to everybody in every single country in the world. Tom Rhodes, I like you very much. I think you're talented and very wonderful. Tom Rhodes, you're the best guy in the world. I wanna be your friend, you should call me sometime. Here is my phone number, 603-644-0048. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedic sensation. Tom Rhodes, I like to listen to your podcast. Tom Rhodes, you're the best man to ever walk on the earth.